first feature poet today is Katy Didden, and Katy is the author of 2 books of poetry. You can buy one of them here today, right? Or maybe both of them?
I think the requires.
The new one. The new one is here for sale, so she'll be happy to sign that for you afterwards. So she's the author of The Glacier's Wake, and more recently, Or Choir, The Lava on Iceland, which appeared from Tupelo Press. Her poems and essays have appeared in many publications through the years, including Poetry Northwest, 32 Poems, Diagram, the Swanee Review, Smartish Pace, and the Kenyon Review. She's also one of the co-creators of Almanac for the Beyond, which appeared from Tropic Editions in 2019. She has received many residencies and fellowships for her work, including the Breadloaf Writers Conference, the Swanee Writers Conference, the Vermont Studio Center, and the Virginia Center for Creative Arts. Katy is an associate professor at Ball State University. I have known Katy for 2 decades now. We met when we were both in DC, and she was earning her MFA in poetry at the University of Maryland. Katy, it's been a pleasure to know you all these years, to watch your poetry career, and thank you for coming to read for us today. Please welcome Katy Didden.
I love this format. I love hearing all these open mic poems, and this is such a great thing. I'm going to set my timer just so I can space it out a little bit. All right. So first of all, I want to thank David, Stefan, and Clare, dear friends from 2 decades, which is amazing. And it's great to see so many friends here and former students. It's just so much fun to be in Baltimore. And I also want to thank Bird in Hand for hosting us tonight. And it's an honor to read with Jerry LaFemina. I'll be reading poems from my new book, as we just mentioned, Or Choir, The Lava on Iceland. And it's an experimental book. It is a book of composite photographs and erasure poems in the voice of lava. So to create this, I researched a range of texts from geologic surveys, to grocery labels, to political histories, to Norse sagas, to Game of Thrones. And then I collaborated with one of my dearest friends, Kevin Sun, who created the images. And we also solicited photos from a ton of people we know who traveled to Iceland. So there's kind of a sub-narrative of why is it so many artists go to Iceland. And I wanted to explore how collaboration, the use of archival materials, the combination of text and image invite us to rethink our relationship to text and by extension, our relationship to the world. So since the poems are many layered, I'm going to introduce each one by naming the photographer and the source text. Hey, oh my God. And then I'll read the first prose sentence and then the poem. So there's kind of a lot of setup there. But before I start with the erasure poems, I wanted to begin with a poem from my first book, Glacier's Wake, which is kind of a preview of my creative relationship with Iceland. This is called Peace Tower. In the year my father died, Yoko Ono built a beam of light on a grass-covered island across a narrow field of ocean from Reykjavik. You should see it. Click this link. See the shape that started as thoughts of a line in Yoko's mind. When Yoko told John her idea for the light, he wanted it to shine up from his yard. So now in air no one can own, the way no one really owns a tune, a light burns that bullets cannot stop. I'd like to fly to Iceland, take a boat to the beam. I'd like to see every flake of snow set aglow as it fell. Against the aggregate of light, I'd take the hailing bright as mute replies from my beloved dead. Imagine trying to sing to someone through a wall of mud, a mile of sea. John's voice sings across the century, can still be heard in Earth's remotest cities. The plunk of the piano that his fingers traveled over, imprinted onto grooves of vinyl over which the needles spiral, so sound spins up into the air. Let the beams spiral off a low cyclonic system, funneling the sky over Iceland. Two opposing forces, like the thread down of sound into sense, like the balance of scales of a Libra singing, his voice in key, bending melody. The beam of light is white in the mind, blue in fact. The base of the light is white glass. Heat from the core melts the black sand of Iceland to something smooth, translucent, earth that lets light shine through. In my mind, I see the beam warbling up to the sky. At times the beam is wide, at times it thins. At times it seems to stutter over light erasing mist. As if light were a held luck, we shine up in the dark, in the winter, under whistling stars. Love this crowd. This is a great crowd. You guys are awesome. Okay, so I'm going to read these erasure poems, and the first one is from a passage by Benjamin Franklin, and it was part 4 of his meteorological imaginations and conjectures. And the first prose line: during several of the summer months in the year 1783, when the effect of the sun's rays to heat the earth in these northern regions should have been the greatest, there existed a constant fog over all Europe. And this is the lava who's speaking through that prose passage. Earth unseals its elemental fire with the focus of a burning glass. Hues pass, then ash acts waterish. I lidded the north as mist. The great globe paled to paper. I changed rain to ink. Spread the news, I'm winter's warner. I signal first in tremors. And this next one is, this is by John Ashbery, and he wrote about the Icelandic artist Louisa Matthíasdóttir. And the first line of prose: there are no superfluous secrets in Louisa Matthíasdóttir's paintings. The edge of the table in her still lifes is closer to the viewer's eye. And this is the lava's opinion. The easel leaner aims to unblur Iceland. She edges even blanks to her argument. Slant roofs stripe a jade acre, and the cliffs are an archive of gestures. There are the landscapes of Iceland, as well as ideas which block the view. Still, this is art, as real as stone. A window to see land, clean, chilly, and open. To honor the water in you. To make it possible to rest. All right. This next one is from John McPhee's essay, Cooling the Lava, and he wrote about this phenomenon in the book Control of Nature, how there was this eruption in Jaime in Iceland, and the people who live there actually diverted the flow of lava to save the port. So they somehow got these pumps to pump the ocean water, and they would stand up on the lava and cool it down, and they redirected it away from the port and saved the port. So this is what the lava thought about that. Like an animal, I seemed to hesitate. They saw me as a soul, one who'd listen. The waves across my red rock spelled a skin, filled in blanks of speech, translating halt by degrees. The coast redrawn, a twined lexicon where nouns are never still. To read, select an area of the lava lit with moss and eat. Let the fluent body redefine heaven as something more than human. I'll just read a few more. This one is the primary text is by Isabel Berwick, and it's about Game of Thrones. And she went on one of those tours in Iceland, and she went and saw wildling leader Mance Raider's camp. So she wrote about, you too can go to Iceland and see the Game of Thrones tour. And so this is what the lava thought about that. Sing lava, a Dimmu-Borger lay, a lunar acre, a panoramic tremor. Wanderers favor angels, bards obsidian, rock of old. The lava is the dragon. I clot the sky with gold. Okay, so this one of my collaborator who made the images is the artist Kevin Sun. He's one of my dearest friends, and it was such, one of the greatest joys of this book was getting to work with him. And every poem we made was really a conversation and often a compromise. We have very different aesthetics in some sense, and so we had, what we called the lava lounge. We would meet each other and try to decide how to move forward, which I think is very integral to the work, that the work is very much about that. So he is a vegan, and we went to Iceland on a research tour, and we had, we went to all the vegan restaurants, delicious, there are many of them, it was great. So this is for him, in honor of him, and it's from a source text by Solveig Eriksdotter called Vegan in Iceland. And I was researching lichen, and as I was researching the symbiotic relationship between the fungi and the algae, I was thinking to myself that it was like Romeo and Juliet. So this is where this comes from. Okay. Oh soft, what sun through fungal cells shines green. It is the algae, miles from sea. Lichen, sweetening stone to soil. A reverie, it grows all over as spore-gemmed lines everyone loves. All right. I'm going to read just two more. And the source text for this one is by Paul Walker and Jonathan Hunt, The Legacy of Reykjavik and the Future of Nuclear Disarmament. And the first line of the prose. What then is Reykjavik's legacy? Gorbachev warned Reagan at Reykjavik that their window of opportunity was narrow. Time passed, things changed, the Soviet leader said. If they failed to agree, Reykjavik would be simply a memory. So I asked Lava about that and said, words start war, and then war is wordless. Mistranslated missive, a missile begins as emotion. A sense the enemy is animal, like you. All life, brief as disaster, echoes the bang, and human code coils around a single fuse. At the frayed ends, world leaders ink out the legacy of manias. Okay, so I'm just going to read one more. It requires a little bit of setup. In this book, at the heart of the book are 3 double erasures where I moved through the source text twice. And the first time I moved through was to find questions. And I had a priest, a scientist, and the vulva of Norse mythology, who was like a seer, interview the lava about the 1783 eruption that lowered global temperatures. And basically each of them was interviewing the lava, how could this happen because so many people died. And so though the situations are different, I found as I was researching this eruption that it had so many resonances with our climate anxieties today. And in particular, it was very moving to me to see how the world came together to facilitate human migration, to send aid, to try to figure out what was going on, and just to see how people survived this really terrible situation. So it's making me also think about the news about the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and how these massive tectonic forces, when we're encountering this devastation, just really puts things in perspective and helps us to see our shared humanity. At least I hope so. And meditating on this really helped me to do that. So I'm going to close with one of these poems, and it's a poem in two voices. And this is The Scientist Questions the Lava. And the source text is by Thorvaldur Thordarson and Stephen Self, Atmospheric and Environmental Effects of the Laki Eruption. So they were geologists who cross-referenced the rock record with first-hand accounts of people who survived. So I'm going to be scientist and lava. Scientist. Define deep time. Lava. Fissures in the pasture. List skies. A rain of blobs and brine. Measure the ruin of days. A red sun shorn of its rays. The opposite of Laki is the past, the past. What was fixed? What was fluid? Lobes crept in hollows, birds fled. Can we read this pattern as prediction? Feel the scale? Hares whistle, rivers dwindle, horses wail. Index the scene, smoke blue and reaching. Reenact the flows, no one alive knows. What lingers? Danger. Draw the figure, fire. Thank you so much.
Great job, Katy. Thanks again for coming here today and reading your fantastic new poems. That was wonderful.